News at 6 with Joe Perkins.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. We begin tonight with an update into a story we first brought you earlier this month when we took you into the home of Alan Clapp. The veteran broadcaster, known as an ideas man, has taken on many fights in his time, but nothing quite like this. At 83 years old, Clapp is battling terminal brain cancer, but that's not all. Clapp and his partner say they are being harassed, wrongfully evicted from their home, and now at a time when they say they should be focusing on Alan's final days, they say they're preparing for an eviction deadline just days away.
This is a sample of the last week.
They're notices from a landlord that wants Alan Clapp and his partner Geraldine out of their home.
This is the mailbox that she installed 2 weeks ago to have an excuse to come to our door.
The couple have spent 6 years living in the upper suite of this quiet Victoria home.
Mr. Clapp is unlikely to survive more than 2 or 3 months maximum.
The letter is from Alan's doctor. It goes on to outline the details of Alan's terminal brain cancer. They're difficult words to read, especially when Geraldine is fighting two battles, one against cancer, the other a landlord.
Having to deal with her, it robs me from time that I would like to be with him.
Since our first meeting with the couple last week, a lot has changed. Alan is weaker and now permanently in a wheelchair. The door to their home seems to now be permanently covered in eviction notices. Then there's the cancer.
All I want to do is sleep, sleep, sleep.
But that's difficult. Geraldine says the landlord has recently started illegal renovations in the basement.
The whole house shakes, and it is right underneath Alan's bed. It's harassment.
We spoke to the landlord by phone today, but she refused to comment on the situation. The Seattle-based landlord has told CTV News in the past that she is moving to Canada and plans to live in the house and wants the couple out by the end of the month.
She wants us out. Actually, it's a week today. You've seen Alan. Can you imagine moving him?
Geraldine says she can't and she shouldn't. The couple have appealed to the Supreme Court and are planning this week to file an injunction. Their lawyer says it's not a slam dunk, but it should be a temporary solution. For Alan, it's a difficult end to a life that's been full of memories, some of the greatest in 1976, when his habitat farm in Vancouver attracted the likes of Mother Teresa and Margaret Trudeau. Now the ideas man says he feels helpless, caught up in two battles he never imagined he'd be fighting.
It scares me very, very much.
It was 22 years ago today that 4-year-old Michael Dunn was last seen on a playground at Blanchard Elementary School. It happened back on March the 24th of 1991. He was last seen around 12:30 that day in the area of the school playground. Despite years of investigation, the case remains unsolved. His disappearance is one of the largest missing persons investigations in Canadian history. Victoria police say they still get tips and continue to search for clues.
It's the 22nd year since Michael Dunn went missing back on March 24th. And, you know, it's still an active investigation with our officers, still something that we do talk about on a regular basis. And, you know, we've asked for it in the past, but we know it's going to be that one tip that breaks the case for us.
On Friday, April 7th, there will be a run and walk for Michael Dunn. The Michael Dunn Keep the Hope Alive dance is also scheduled. That's for the April 5th, I should say, at Archie Browning Arena. There is also a mass scheduled for Michael and all missing children at noon this Tuesday at the Queen of Peace Church. That's in Esquimalt. If anyone has information about Michael Dunn disappearance, they can contact Vic PD or Crime Stoppers. Marijuana users traveling south of the border are running into more than just a roadblock. It seems Washington State's move to legalize the drug has left some people confused about whether or not they can take marijuana across the border. Last year, possession of small amounts of marijuana became legal in Washington State, and according to lawyers, that has caused some major misunderstandings as well as holdups at border crossings into Washington. Crossings such as the one at the Peace Arch are operated by the U.S. government, and under federal law, possession is still illegal.
Completely confusing because the feds, federal government controls the border through Customs and Border Protection, and if they catch you with marijuana, they can't charge you because the state, Washington State, will not prosecute you. So it's a catch-22. You're deemed inadmissible for something that the state's not going to prosecute you for.
If you are deemed inadmissible, then it can lead to more problems. Brian Fowler says he made a huge mistake when he entered the U.S. with a small amount of marijuana. Not only was he turned away, but in order to return to the U.S., he had to get a re-entry waiver, which takes time and costs a lot of money. Waivers take several months to obtain and can cost upwards of $600. He says it was all a major hassle over a mistake.
Well, it was going back and forth a couple times. One was for the pre-trial and then for the actual trial. And then after that, I had to go through a lawyer and fill out paperwork and criminal record check and send that all through and send it off. It was a big headache. Definitely was a lot of time into that. So
There's a lot of confusion, especially for people who've had waivers in the past, who've been deemed inadmissible because they have had a small amount of marijuana in Canada and they were charged and convicted for possession of marijuana. They're now calling me asking if they're still inadmissible because Washington state allows it.
Until there is clarification between federal and state laws in the U.S., the lawyer says no Canadians should be trying to take marijuana into Washington state. Ontario's public broadcaster is speaking tonight, one day after being blasted for a video game it created, highlighting British Columbia's ongoing pipeline debate. The game is called Pipe Trouble. It's meant to promote a documentary called Trouble in the Peace about a series of explosions targeting Encana pipelines that rocked Dawson Creek 4 years ago. The game's maker, Alex Jansen, says his game is an over-the-top satire based on real events, not eco-terrorism.
We're representing variety of what's been going on in the real world within the video game, but in no way it's no different than a bombing being represented in the news or a bombing being represented in another documentary or another film. It's not in any way that the player is actually playing as an eco-terrorist.
Jansen's company is donating part of the proceeds from the game to the David Suzuki Foundation. The community of Shawnigan Lake expects more than 1,000 people to turn out tomorrow night for a public rally it hopes will send a message to the province. The government is a couple of weeks away from authorizing a local aggregate company to dump contaminated soil on its property. The process is legal, but the community says that does not make it right. The site is in the middle of its watershed, and many believe it could result in problems, including dirty drinking water. The meeting is scheduled for 7 o'clock, and it's at the Shawnigan Lake Community Centre. Well, Vancouver Island deserves a round of applause tonight. BC Hydro released the results of last night's energy-saving Earth Hour in the top 5 communities in the province to save energy. We're all on Vancouver Island. Comox, Courtenay, North Saanich, Sydney, and Qualicum Beach led the way during last night's worldwide Earth Hour. In all, British Columbians saved 136 megawatt hours of electricity, reducing the provincial load by almost 2% last night. BC Hydro says the results are the equivalent of turning off more than 10 million 12.5 watt LED light bulbs. Now, of the top 5 communities, Comox and Courtenay saw the highest reduction at nearly a full 10%. The full breakdown can be seen online at bchydro.com. There are a few tuckered out hockey players in the Capital Region after a 24-hour tournament this weekend at Bear Mountain.
See that little guy out there? I think he had me in the corner.
CTV's Chandler Grieve trying to keep his head up today as the player/MC at the 3rd annual Brink of Dreams 24-hour charity hockey tournament. More than $110,000 was raised today for the Help Build a Dream Foundation here on Vancouver Island.
I lost my nephew Sean years ago. He was just after he turned 3. He passed away from complications of leukemia, and I wanted to do something in his memory, and I also wanted to make sure that whatever we did was in honor of kids, and and so that's why we put this event on.
The tournament started yesterday at noon and ran until today at noon. This morning, a team of media players from CFAX 1070, 107.3 Cool FM, as well as CTV Vancouver Island strapped on the skates and took their turn. Chandler Grieve, along with camera operator Jason Hallman, who strapped a camera on his head, that's what we're looking at here, teamed up with our general manager, Kevin Bell.
We just try to get involved in the community any way we can. It's important. This is grassroots stuff. It's a bunch of guys that I kind of played hockey with years ago that got together and organized all this, and we were just so pleased to support it, and it's our 3rd year.
All of the proceeds from the tournament will be used to help children with life-threatening conditions, all of them on Vancouver Island.